Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, where we try to get beyond the buzzwords and tech trends and try to understand how they can bring real business benefits and tangible results with a different guest every single day from multiple industries. And that eclectic mix of guests is a big part of the success in this show, but another major player is you, the audience, because it's your feedback that is equally as important as any points that I make or the guest makes on the show. So if you work in the industry that we're going to talk about today, or you've got any expertise or any experience or any insights, at the end of the show, I'll be asking you to join in and let me know your thoughts. But today, I invited the guys from Cloudeo onto the show. Cloudeo is a Munich and blockchain-based platform for managing and accessing geodata. And they plan to disrupt the traditional satellite data industry by connecting all geo-service players, users, apps, developers, software provider and geo-providers all onto one single platform. Cloudeo CEO, it's got a ring to it, hasn't it? And co-founder Manfred Krischke, he's waiting to discuss the company's technology, the growing applications for geodata, and the advantages of blockchain for managing the entire data ecosystem. So buckle up and hold on tight, because wherever you're listening to this show right now, it's now time to beam your ears all the way to Germany, so we can speak with Cloudeo CEO, co-founder Manfred Krischke. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
All right, so let me start with giving you quickly an update where I'm coming from, because by education, I'm an aerospace engineer and started my career, I'm so old, beginning of the 90s in space. So I was working on satellites, on navigation payloads, on re-entry capsules, whatsoever. And but got fed up of the subsidy business of the agency. So I decided to focus on more commercial applications for space. So that's when I founded my first company in '98, which was a satellite company. So we launched 5 satellites to monitor the Earth, and the goal was really to start up with commercial services, mainly for agriculture and forestry. And then there were several other companies over the time, and it was partially successful, partially not successful. And if you look at the industry, it is like it's kind of stuck in this project mode and government business. And all these over these years, the lessons learned led me to found Cloudeo. We started the activity about 6 years ago, and the goal was really to get these entry barriers out of in that industry that really kind of hinder people to come up with good geo-services and do commercial business, and that's the starting point of Cloudeo. And yeah, maybe you have questions about the business. I could explain, of course, more about what Cloudeo does, but maybe as an introduction, that's good enough.
Absolutely. And I've got to pull you up on something, because you did say a few moments ago you started your career in the early 90s in space. So you've got to clear that one up. Were you actually in space, or have you been in space, or was it all from the ground?
No, unfortunately, it was all from the crowd. I mean, our satellites reached space, but no, I was never in space, maybe dreamt of, but no, I didn't see the realistic chance to do so.
No, but maybe in the future, the way the tech industry is going, with Bezos, Branson, and Musk and co, all determined to get us all into space. Definitely,
next year or the next couple of years, the first tourists will be up there on those missions. So. Let's see. Who knows?
Now, Cloudeo is a blockchain-based platform for managing and accessing geodata that plans to disrupt the traditional satellite data industry completely by connecting all those geo-service players, users, apps, developers, software providers and geo-providers all on one single platform. But for anyone listening that is just hearing about you guys for the first time, can you just tell them a little bit more about what problems you're aiming to solve with Cloudeo, and also what obviously makes you guys unique, and that blockchain element and why that's so important too?
First of all, what are we concerned with? It's all about geo-information. So you can imagine that almost everything what humans do depends on the environment. So knowing about what's happening has impact to a lot of verticals. And typically what you do is you use satellites, you make imagery, you use other kind of data, you add weather data, you add soil data, whatever kind of data which have a specific kind of connection to a certain location, and you apply analytics to that. And with this analytics, you draw out information which are useful for all different types of vertical industries. And traditionally, and that's still the case today, if you want to come up with this type of service, you have to find a supplier of the data, different suppliers. You buy data, which is pretty expensive. You have to buy software licenses. Typically, it's still the perpetual license. You have to build up your computer facility. You have to develop your product. You have to develop a path to your customer, do the accounting, do invoices, whatever. So all this is quite some effort, and this effort creates a barrier for somebody to start business. And that's where Cloudeo comes into play, because what we did is we established this cloud-based platform. So let me first focus on cloud before I come to the blockchain, but a cloud-based platform where now a developer or somebody who has a good service product or wants to come up with a good service product finds access to all different types of data. So it could be from satellite to aerial to ground data to crowdsourced data from mobile apps, whatever. He gets access to that. He doesn't have to buy necessarily. He can rent it, or he can even enter into revenue sharing. He finds every software he needs. He has a full scalable architecture and hardware he can play with and produce his services. And he has a marketplace, a platform which does all the accounting and invoicing and the relationship, the commercial relationship with the customers. And like this, he can start his own business with almost without any investment. So typically you're talking about a few 10,000s at least for an investment, typically hundreds of thousands. And this can, in our case, he comes to Cloudeo, finds everything, and it maybe and can then offer services for a few tens of bucks or $100 and still makes profit because his entry barrier costs were not so high. So that's in principle the idea of Cloudeo. And in the first run, this doesn't have to do too much with blockchain. Blockchain is kind of for us leading the way forward, because we still have, in the traditional way, you have the if you have a technical transaction, you have a separate then commercial transaction. So you have a service running automatically. It's a computer code, and then besides of that, you are tracking, okay, what has been consumed from the suppliers. You tell them this, they write you invoices, you collect the money from the end customer, you distribute it, and all this is quite some effort. And the blockchain, specifically with the smart contracts on the blockchain, they suddenly allow that you can do financial transactions. So the payment for the services, the services happens within a computer code, and at the same time this computer code is fulfilled, the value for the payment is transferred. So like this, you can really get into these, as they call, microservices, or small pieces of services which are feasible in itself through the smart contracts on the blockchain.
So what would the role of the Cloudeo tokens be? And when we be launching an ICO, is that on the horizon too?
Yeah, we are preparing it. We have already a first round of investors, or not investors, but users buying rights for tokens. And why do you need your own token? You see, these smart contracts for geo-services can become pretty complex. So because you have a multi-dimensional problem, you have an area of interest, you have an altitude, you have different time points where you want to do your analysis, you have different types of data. So it's if you want to put this into a smart contract, such a transaction, it can become over time pretty complex. And this requires technology development. And that's part because why most of those tokens are generated is you need something to incentivize people. You incentivize people who put money in, you incentivize people who deliver data, who would do any type of work. And in order to have this incentivization and to create this community, you come up with your own token, and that's the 7 token, as we call it, 7. And this is kind of issued and managed by a foundation. So we decided that this is not Cloudeo doing that, because what we need is an open community, an open source community where it's easy and where it's acceptable for all different types of companies to participate. And Cloudeo is just one of the initial supporters, and of course a very active supporter. And we have this foundation located in Liechtenstein, which is then the kind of the open source, open for everybody, who runs this token, who gives out this token, collects the money, plays this money within the community to develop the technical technology for those smart contracts focused on geo-services.
Now, Cloudeo services have seen an especially high level of interest across the agriculture, land planning, marine, real estate, insurance and forest industry, to name just a few. So can you expand on this a little and maybe offer listeners a use case just to help them visualize the real world problems that you're solving with this blockchain solution?
Okay, let me give you an example for agriculture. As most people probably know, is traditionally, earlier times, the fields were small and the farmers knew their fields, and when they treated the fields, they knew, okay, on this spot I need to put a little bit more fertilizer, on the other spot less. But this knowledge about the fields kind of disappeared over time because the facilities got bigger and bigger, and there was accumulation of different new fields where there was no experience. Then the next period was that, okay, now farmers would put the same amount of fertilizer all across a field, which is, of course, because any field is very inhomogeneous. So it's a waste of fertilizer on one part, and also it puts a load to the environment. On the other side, there's not enough fertilizer. And this is where precision farming comes into play. Precision farming means that the machine is equipped with GPS devices, and the machine gets the information from a different source that how much fertilizer it should put on which part of the field. And this is what you typically do, what we mean with such a geo-service. So satellites are monitoring the field, so in a large scale. You combine that with specific models on which take into consideration the weather, like humidity, like temperatures, whatsoever, soil maps, and all different types of additional information which you might have for the specific plants you want to kind of deliver that service. So all this is happening in an automated fashion, and now the farmer can come and can say, okay, I want to fertilize my field, and now I need the set of data, which I can put into my machine, and then the machine, when it goes over the field, knows exactly where to put what. And that's a service. This can be bought on a platform like Cloudeo, on this marketplace, maybe through specialized portals, which would get the information and the service from our platform, where as I said, the satellites provide data, all the data are collected, the analytics is implemented, and then just delivering those data sets for the machinery. This is one example, for example. To give you another example, which is very different from that, is AIS. So it's these automated information system for ships. So probably you know that any commercial ship from a certain size has to have a transponder on board and has to send out information on who owns the ship, what type of ship is it, what is it loaded, where it's heading to. And those data are collected from terrestrial stations along the coasts, but they're also collected from satellites. And what we have, for example, on Cloudeo is a service partner who kind of has contracts with all these different types of satellite providers, and he performs a model. So it's a model which where virtually any ship, commercial ship, is living in this virtual model and is simulated where it currently is, where it has been, and where it's going to. and it's updated with the satellite data. And this is information which now is interesting for fleet operators, for in the fishery, for local governments, local agencies, whatever, to really have a means to track ships, to predict where ships are, to make sure that ships are there where they are supposed to be and not somewhere else. This is an additional service. And if you take this and you intersect that with radar satellite data, where you could, for example, detect ships from space with satellite, and then you can see, is there a signal in AIS also, which means, okay, this is probably legal, or is there a ship which you see on the radar which doesn't have the transponder switched on, and then you know, okay, there might be something wrong with the ship. Why doesn't it show its signal? So two very different examples, and you can imagine almost in any what I said before, any vertical industry applications which are similar or which kind of use the different resources from space-based assets and combine it with other analytical methods and provide services.
Now, can you also tell me a little bit more about the growing applications for geodata? And also, I'm quite conscious that blockchain is becoming a bit of a buzzword, so I think we should discuss the advantages of blockchain and what that actually brings for managing this data ecosystem.
When Google Maps came to the market, or before Google Maps came to the market, you typically governments, for example, the EU with the agriculture subsidy control, kind of used space assets. You had a large scientific area using that. And then for the first time, when Google Maps came into the industry, people realized the power of satellite imagery, of having the overview, having really understanding much better than just from a normal map what's happening. And over time, and with the navigation devices in cars and so on, so there's the market has grown to a very large size. And now today, if you talk to companies like Google, they know that the geolocation is the essential part for most information. And if you're able to put this type of information in the context, and you get a total new value. So this market is probably today, as there's an Oxera study which was done for Google, it's about 270 billion a market, and there are more, but still today it's more like, okay, Google has a static map, shows you what's there, but it doesn't provide you these updated information, doesn't provide you means to come up with services as I described with agriculture, and that's where we believe is a huge growth still to come, or services for in cars, which it's winter time and you're going overland. You could run models now using the satellite imagery, weather data, simulation technologies to predict where streets are probably icy, and then send this information directly into the car as a warning. And so the industry is growing, and by what we do, by bringing making it easy now to use also satellite imagery for that geo industry, we believe that the satellite industry will fuel this normal geospatial industry by far in the future. And why blockchain now? Blockchain again is what, as I explained before, it's so unique because you don't need an intermediate to do business. Typically, if you can sell stuff, you can provide web services, but as soon as you want to be paid for that, you have to involve a bank, you have to involve a credit card agency, whatever, and you generate effort, and it's very difficult, and it's a centralized approach, and it's very difficult to start with new business because you have to build up this huge infrastructure, have to partner with all these different partners before you start. And with a blockchain, suddenly you can, and that's the big revolution of blockchain compared to the normal internet. You cannot just simply transport information. That was what the internet did from one point to another very quickly and in a grid. But now what you can also do at the same time in a very secure and legal defined way, you can transfer value also, not just information, but value. And that makes it so interesting because it also allows suddenly complete new business models. Like today, everybody is producing a huge amount of geodata with its mobile telephone. Usually you don't realize, but your phone is tracked. You produce a lot of interaction in the web, and combined with your geo information, and this is very valuable geo information which you give away for free today. And of course, there's no way for you to empower you that you get a part of this value, which you today just give away to Google or to BMW in your car when they use your data from the car, and so on. And changing that centrally is almost impossible because of the market power and the power those companies have. But with the blockchain, and specifically with these tokens, you could establish a filter in your phone. It's a simple app, and say, okay, I allow that somebody picks in my information, but only if every time he picks something and this is used, I get a few tokens as a compensation. So this type of approaches are so far impossible to think of, or at least that you could introduce those easily. So that's where blockchain allows you complete new business models also.
Now, there just seems to be several different components to the Cloudeo platform, such as IoT, GeoEngine, smart contracts, store and tokens. So can you tell me a little bit more about these components and how each play a part in your grand vision? It seems like you're on a journey to Web 3.0 there.
Yes, and there are kind of people saying in a critical way, cloud is using all the buzzwords which are on the market, because it's true. I mean, we are a cloud-based platform. We are going into the IoT and the blockchain world, and of course we are dealing with big data, and of course the analysis of geodata is very much triggered into the machine learning and AI era. So it's true that we kind of use all this type of technologies heavily in our company. But let me go back to the very basics. The very basics is, at the end, we are a marketplace. So we are a marketplace where participants in that industry, from the providers of data, provider of software, the ones who use both components and want to come up with services and provide those to the end customers and the end customers. And our marketplace is kind of a platform where those can do their business easily together, and where we provide the technology that this can be done in new business models. That's the core of it. And the cloud was important because that was the enabler that you can go into those new business models, because people can work on data without processing the data, without getting control on the data. They can work in the cloud on the data, but don't take over control. And that's an important element for those revenue sharing projects. And that's the key technology of Cloudeo. And now the rest, of course, the analytics to analyze large, and these are huge data sets, remote sensing data, you need a lot of clever technology elements, and typically machine learning and so on is today a means to efficiently do that. So naturally, this is running on our platform as a technology to do efficient monitoring. And now the next step is IoT, because as I said before, when this underlying effort, if you separate technology from the payment, creates is too much cost for the IoT area. Because in the future, imagine you have a device can communicate with other devices, and this could be a very stupid device. As long as it can communicate to our platform, it can ask questions, simple questions or complicated questions, but get simple answers for that, and all the kind of analysis and so on happens in our platform. And that's why we have the vision that our platform develops in an IoT geo-engine. So simple example, which is a stupid example, but I usually use it because it's visible, or it gives a clear picture. Imagine a device being outside on a field, and it starts to rain, and this is a very simple device, so it doesn't have any senses to know what's happening or what's going to happen in the next future. So this device could ask a question to our platform. Oh, it's raining. What should I do? Is there Is there a water stream coming above me, or am I on a safe place, for example? And then it could ask this question to the platform. The platform then does all the analysis. They have a digital elevation model of the terrain. It has a model for computing where the water flows. It has the weather data, and using that, and then it can tell the simple device, don't worry, you can stay here, or move 60 meters to the west, and then you are safe, or something like this. So as an IoT engine for all those devices who need information with respect to their environment.
So why is it, do you think, that blockchain actually is the future of the geo sector, and what big changes do you see on the horizon as a result?
First of all, it's this, that you are able to do small transactions. That's a very key thing. The second thing is, you can imagine that in many fields, if you want to use satellite data and derived information from that data for stuff which might have a legal implication, then you need to make sure that nobody kind of changed the results, or you have to develop a track, what is called veracity. So you have to prove that, also to a lawyer at the end, if it comes to that case, that you can prove, okay, these were the processing steps and these were the data, and this led to this result. And for this, the blockchain is also an ideal means, because you can don't want to go too much into the technology, but you can generate hashes of the information, which are 100% proof that these hashes represent the data which are stored in a different place. And like this, you can and you store all this information in the public blockchain, so everybody can have an access to that. He can and nobody can change that later on. And with this, you can build up these traceability chains. So this is also a very important element, why blockchain is specifically for the geo-service part a very important element for the future. So transaction simplicity with new business models, plus this traceability and veracity of the data for all different types of applications.
So another thing that I am noticing in the blockchain space is actually secure adoption. There needs to be a lot of education in this area to make sure everyone comes along for the ride. So can you tell me more about how Cloudeo and Geo-University have actually teamed up so that anybody can become a geo expert?
So first of all, we run webinars, of course, where people can participate and can learn how they can use it. We participated in different challenges. So these were for young engineers, where they can come up with ideas, and it's kind of a little competition, and then they can realize those ideas. And we even sponsored that. And so and of course, we're looking very close interactions with the different academic sites also. We have certain products because, as I said, we offer everything as a service. So, and there are universities or there are institutes which do not have the money to buy perpetual licenses, but with us, they can, for example, if they do a 2 weeks class, they can easily just rent for 2 weeks the full equipment they need, and then for students could work on it and have the full equipment in place, full power, everything without compromises, but only for 2 weeks. And like this, we try to educate the market and make it easy for as many people and as possible.
So as we look to the future, can you tell me more about how you guys are also building a Google, Amazon, Apple App Store for Geodata too?
Of course, it sounds like a big goal if you take those three mega companies and we want to do something like this. And of course, we know it's a bit provocating, but the background is really look what those companies are doing. I mean, Amazon, that's obvious because we are a marketplace. So the idea is we are the ones, whenever you look for geo information, any kind of complement, anything which has to do in this type of application, there should be one place where you go and where you find what you need. So that's the Amazon element. The Google element is, of course, how to find all that. The search part of that is, of course, very important. And the third element is the Apple Store, and that is in a way probably what is the most applicable to Cloudeo, because what are we doing? We have developed an infrastructure which now with the interface to the end customer so that the people can participate, can pay with that. And then we allow app developers to come on that infrastructure, find everything they need, and develop their own app and deliver that app to this community. So in a way, it's not just about buying something, it is about enabling new applications. And that's what Apple did extremely successfully with the iOS and the App Store. And this is, in a way, an element which is important also for us, because that stimulates now the thousands of creative companies who want to develop the apps. They find everything they need, and it's easy for them to find also the customer and do the financial issues with the customer. So therefore, these are the three elements, and that's why we, in this provocating way, say, okay, we want to become the Amazon, Google, and Apple App Store for the geo-service industry.
Well, a huge thank you for coming on today. But before I do let you go, could I just ask that you remind the listeners of where they can find you online, and also contact a member of your team if they've got any questions about every topic that we've covered around geodata today?
Okay, so actually it's very easy. If you type in Cloudeo into Google, you will find it immediately. Typically, we are in the top line. So Cloudeo, like cloud, the cloud in the sky, and then EO, like Earth observation. So Cloudeo. But it would be www.cloudeo.group. And if you go, that would be our website. And if you go, and you would find the link to our store also. If you go there, you'll find all different types of things which we offer today. And you would find there also just simply the address. If you need information to a certain product, just if you go to the product, you would find a link where you can get it, or just call me. You can email me anytime, or call our customer support and sales team with the address which are given on the page.
Fantastic. I love everything that you're doing here, and it's about areas that a lot of people don't think about on a regular basis, but it's about technology transforming entire industries and actually removing inefficiencies, which is a fantastic thing. So I wish you the best of luck with your ICO and the future, and I hope you'll stay in touch, and let's get you back on in 6 months and see how that journey's going. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time out today and speaking with me.
Super. Thanks, Neil. It was a pleasure for me. Thanks.
Wow, talk about every day being a school day. I mean, hands up, I admit I had not even thought about IoT geo-engines and overarching interfaces that allow billions and billions of devices to request and obtain and use geodata. But I love how Cloudeo provides a way to access all relevant satellite imagery, third-party apps, software, datasets and data archives. Predictably, there are blockchain smart contracts that provide self-executing agreements among those network participants, represented by Cloudeo crypto tokens. And I do like their vision of Clio tokens being a preferred method of payment for all geodata and all service-related transactions. And Cloudeo tokens are also fully suitable for micropayment that will be traded on cryptocurrency exchanges too. And I guess this is yet another project that I'm going to be monitoring very closely over the next few months. But I'm extremely interested in hearing anyone listening today that is better qualified than myself to share their thoughts on what they think about today's conversation. So what do you think of Cloudeo, and what do you think of the entire concept? As always, email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Now, I generally want to hear from all of you, and both the positives and the negatives, to get that well-rounded view of any solution that I feature on this show. So keep those messages coming in, and if there are any projects that interest you, please let me know, and I'll try and make something happen. Because you guys and dolls are my boss, and I'm here to serve you, my loyal audience. Because if you can tune in every day of the week, the least I can do is make sure you get the guests that you want to hear. But I'm out of time now, so a huge thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.